When David Perkins talks about the different types of knowledge, which he characterizes as possessive, performative, and proactive in increasing orders of subjectivity, it's really interesting that he uses that term performative as one of the terms. When he uses it, he's undoubtedly intending to use it not in a theatrical sense or in a presentational sense. He's using it in the sense of an action, of something carried out. But as John Mackenzie talks about in Perform or Else, and I think Robert Crease talks about this as well in terms of the performance of certain sorts of science practices, that distinction isn't quite as clear as perhaps it appears. There's a sense in which action is a kind of theatrical moment, the coming to fruition, the coming into being of an intention, I suppose. And I think that term performative as a term for a kind of knowledge certainly benefits from the metaphor of the stage, if you like, the classical, prototypical metaphor of the stage, in which to perform is to step out of the darkness and into the light, leave rehearsal behind and occupy the present moment of the now, and be publicly available for a moment. That sense of a stepping forward into the brightly lit space, which I've talked about before in terms of intentionality and how we understand intentionality as a vector leading from the subject towards the ultimate object, which I think is something that Gibson talks about. It's interesting to put that against or alongside this notion of performativity that Perkins is alluding to. What he seems to be indicating with that term, or how that seems to locate itself within this spatializing metaphor of knowledge that I've been working with here, is that the knowledge is performative to the extent that it steps up and takes its place and does something in the moment, actively joins materials together, actively sculpts the concepts of the world into a new form, as a live act of creation. And that can be quite a tussle. I find some of these videos quite a tussle to make, actually. I never quite know what I'm going to say before I start speaking. And sometimes I find myself in the presence of objects of thought that I can barely get my hands around, and which perhaps I don't get my hands around. I do often feel like I'm dropping them, or breaking them, or picking them up by the wrong hand, or damaging them in some way, for which I sincerely apologise to both those thoughts and ideas and to the original progenitors of those thoughts. So I think when Perkins is talking about performative knowledge, that middle ground between proactive and possessive, I think what he's getting at there is that, or what he's indicating, is a step or a reaching out into that space that connects the subject to the object, that begins to form the object, that might ultimately result in the creation of an object of possessive knowledge, or may simply exist as a kind of processual performance. This video may be transcribed, I may write it up in some way, or I might not. This might be one of the crap ones I just ignore. I might even delete it at some point.